You're watching Salina Media Connection. Blanca Soto, Campaign Director for Kansas Appleseed, and Monica Vargas-Huertas, Political Director for United Food and Commercial Workers International Union Local 2, gave a presentation November 18, 2019 on the 2020 census. The presentation was part of the Intersections of Faith and Health Conference organized by the United Methodist Health Ministry Fund. The following program lasts about an hour.
But I'm up here to introduce our speakers for this session, and they are the true experts in their fields, and so I know you guys will enjoy their content. So first, I'm going to introduce Blanca Soto. Blanca immigrated to Southwest Kansas from Mexico during her late high school years in search of a better life. Being an immigrant in Southwest Kansas with limited English proficiency, she got her experience firsthand. She has experienced firsthand the challenges and barriers that immigrant community faces as they work towards social acceptance. Her desire to serve her community drove her to build a career in the nonprofit world. After working as a domestic violence and sexual assault and immigration advocate for 5 years, her desire to break the cycle of violence and poverty drove her to a more preventative initiative. For the past 10 years, Blanca worked in youth services, implementing prevention and education programs focused on at-risk students. Blanca joined Kansas Appleseed in May 2019 as the program director for Southwest Kansas to ensure every Southwest Kansas resident is counted in the 2020 census. Blanca's goal is to provide information and education about the census and to bring awareness to the direct and indirect impact the census will have in our communities, along with how it contributes to the local community's ability to meet residents' needs. Our second speaker today will be Monica Vargas, Esquire. Monica is the Political Director and Social Projects Assistant to the President of the UFCW District Union 2, a role which allows her work to work closely with local union members working in the meatpacking, food processing, and retail industries, providing immigration services, as well as engaging community members to develop strategic and long-term partnerships in nonprofit government agencies and elected officials. With over 16,000 members in the states of Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, Local 2 is committed to improve the lives of its members and the communities they belong to. Monica is a biliterate and bilingual attorney with master's degrees in government and public policy and in U.S. legal studies from University of Connecticut School of Law. She has over 15 years of experience working with grassroots around the country and overseas, as well as advocating and implementing programs aimed to solve social issues affecting immigrants and individuals in disadvantaged different backgrounds.
All right, so we're going to start with a little interactive exercise. We're going to be working on introductions. We kind of want to know first in the room and what your knowledge is about the census. And for that, we're going to be utilizing the skills that you have in front of you. So I want just a quick introduction. If you want to tell us your name, the organization that you work for, and then I want you to pick 2 of the 3 skittles that you have in front of you to answer some of the questions that we have in here. I'm not going to make you pick what colors. You have a variety there, so pick 2. And I'm going to start with you right here.
All right, so I'm actually from Poindexter, and I'm with the Health Fund, and I'm going to pick, let's see, yellow. Who filled out the 2010 census in their household? That would definitely be my mom. She is the leader of the family. And I'm going to pick the purple. How does the 2020 census affect your community or job? So I grew up in Bakersfield, California, and I think the way the 2020 census affects my community is really making sure everyone is counted, everyone is provided for, so everyone can get the needs that they require to have in their life to live productive and fulfilling lives. So that's what I think the 2020 census does for my community.
All right.
Patricia Haas, and I'm for USD 305. I would say red. I have participated in the census
In what capacity, if I can ask?
as head of household.
Okay.
And what is one thing, I think that's orange, one thing you can do to help your community reach a complete count? My capacity in my job is a little bit different now, but before, you know, it was education for parents, and it was just mainly getting out there and letting them know that it was safe for everybody and important for everybody to turn in the
Now,
census.
for those of you who do pick orange, I might come back with you at the end of the presentation and see if some of the things that we talked about today change the way that you answer that question. I may just pick on some of you that don't have oranges your Skittle and see if you can add any more to that question, okay?
I am Emily Walker. I work for CAPS here in Salina. It's our Child Advocacy and Parenting Services program. In 2020, I think I filled out the census. I feel like that was a really crazy time in our life, but as I can remember, we had 2 kids, and I remember filling that part out. They were little tiny babies. And I think I don't have green, but I think it's interesting if you have any recollection on the census during your education years. And I think back to my elementary school days, and I feel like I'm aging and I have lots of life experiences, but as an adult, an independent adult, the census has only come out once for me. So all the other times I would have been in elementary school. And I only have a small recollection of it happening. And like it was a really big deal for my family to do, and this big packet was going to come in the mail and you had to send it in. So that's kind of all I have, all I remember about that.
And I would be interested to hear from those of you on that question. But you know, just getting my information here, I don't remember talking about the census in my civics class in high school, my government high school, which you know you will expect to hear some of that. So again, I'm you know, we have different age groups in here. I'd love to hear, you know, some of you that went to school in different states, if that was part of the curriculum. I believe we skipped you.
Yes, sorry. I'm Patsy Penner from Newton, and you want my Skittle colors? I have yellow and green.
Okay, you want to pick 2 of those and answer to a couple of the questions in the screen.
Okay, I filled out the census in 2010,
Okay.
and recollection of the census during my education years. It seems like I've always been aware of it. I think we must have talked about it in school, and that my I think we did, because I understood it helped organize the political process.
That's good to hear. See, we are happy to hear that it did happen. At least, did you go to school at Newton?
I did.
Well, maybe they've been doing a good job there.
In the 50s and 60s, they did.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Do you have any recollection of the census during the education years, government class again, around political, line drawing, all of that stuff? How does the 2020 census affect your community or job? We work really hard to make sure that we get out to get an accurate census, because we use it as the community applies for grants and funding. So, oh, sorry, Debbie Bringer, Neola Healthcare.
I'm Deborah Cox, and I'm with the Methodist Health Ministry Fund on the board. And the 2, I have an orange Skittle, and I've never participated in census outreach. And the next one is a red, which is, I think, what is the one thing you can do to help your community reach a complete count? That's one of the things I would like to find out, but one thing I can do now is talk to people that I know who sort of indicate that they're not interested in completing the census.
Yes. Perfect. What about you, sir?
My name's Dan Lord, and I'm on the board with the Health Ministry Fund as well. And my yellow, I filled out the 2010 census in our household, my green, my first recollection of a census was when I was a freshman at Kansas University in 1970. And I just remember it being a fleeting thing because Vietnam was the huge issue that kind of was overshadowing everything. But there was something going on in our dorm, just something about it, and that's all.
Someone showed up to take your cup. That's right. All right. What about you?
Hi, my name is Shelley Rich, and I'm with the Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita. And I don't have any recollection of the census during my education years, which is one of the big reasons why I picked this session. And one thing that I can do to help my community, I've already seen a lot of momentum in Wichita to educate people about Census 2020, but I haven't even heard the presentation yet, but as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking I should take my knowledge and help make sure that the members of our church are educated on this.
That's what we want. That is what we want.
So my name is Michelle Van. I have an organization called Census Counts, and I'm also part of the Health and Wellness Coalition.
Okay.
Do I have any recollection of the census? I don't really think so, because when you said that question, nothing came to mind. And then my other one would be, what is one thing you can do to help your community to reach a complete count? Part of another responsibility I have is on the board for a community action group, and part of their work with Black and brown people is to make sure that we are having the conversations. But I came here today because I wanted to find out other conversations that we can have, because we have populations of brown people who believe that they're supposed to mark white, which does not really help our brown population.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. That was a great conversation. I heard a lot of different things that we're going to touch on today. Things that, I probably didn't address during the presentation. We're going to, like your question here, on our brown and Black population and how it is affected by our funding. That is a really, really interesting topic that we absolutely need to talk about. So for those of you who actually did have some education in your formative years on the census, this might just be a refresher. But what is the census? We need to remember the census is not just something that happens every 10 years just because the government wants to know who's around here. The census is actually a mandate of the Constitution, okay? It is our responsibility, and probably I would say just as big as voting, if not more, okay? Granted, for voting, you do have to be a U.S. citizen. For the census, it counts everyone living in the country, whether they are citizens or not. And I know there was a big controversy earlier in the summer about the citizenship question, which I think we all know. It was very heavily advertised in the media, so we know that the citizenship question is no longer going to be included in the census. However, it is my opinion that the damage has already happened. There's already enough people scared of this question, and whether they know that it's happening or not, the fear is still there. So the census has happened every 10 years since 1790, okay? And really, it's basically a survey that you fill out, counting how many people live in your household, the ages of everyone you live in your household, and there's some extra questions that are in there that we will address later, but those are the main two questions that are going to appear on your survey. We do want to make sure, because of some of those fears that a lot of our population have, not just in Kansas, but all across the country, that everything in the census is confidential. It is protected, again, by Article 13 of the U.S. Code. Nothing that goes into your survey will be ever shared with any organization whatsoever. Everything is used only for statistical purposes. So there will be actually for those of you who have filled out the census yourself, you will know that it does not come addressed to your name. Nothing that you will receive in your house from the U.S. Census comes addressed to your name. It goes to your mailing address, okay? So if I can move tomorrow and nobody will know that I moved because the census is addressed to your home address, which is one of the things that we really need to work on with our undercounted populations. Now, when I say undercount population, that is a long list that goes in there. The majority of the time, our biggest according to the media, undercounted population is our Black and brown community for different reasons. We have our immigrant community, who is obviously afraid for their immigration status. That is one of the biggest fear. But it is also a fear of our other communities because of confidentiality. You know, we are very fearful that someone's going to get our information for whatever reasons. My mother, for example, she will never, ever answer to something like that because she's still afraid that things are going to be taken for, to steal her identity, or, you know, why will they go and want my information? Why do they want to know if I own my house or not? So we have to address some of those fears. But, okay, so we talk about immigrant community being one of the biggest undercount. We, believe it or not, the highest undercount community is children under 5, which I know a couple of you work in early childhood. That is very surprising to me, that the kids under 5 count as an undercount community. The reason is because sometimes, you know, we were listening to Dr. Moore earlier, that the parents are so busy, they're working, they're fixing meals, and the kids are either in the silence with their iPad, with their phone. We don't really sometimes think of the kids as part of the family. So when someone goes into our door and asks how many members of the family, most people will include the kids, but there's a lot of people who don't think kids under 5 are included in that, okay? So there's a lot of efforts across the state to make sure that all the kids get counted. There's actually a partnership with the Early Head Start to make sure that they are counted. Also, because we are seeing, you know, the census happens every 10 years, so we don't think maybe, you know, this family is going to have 2-3 extra kids within this period of time. A lot of people answer to the census when they're pregnant, and they don't really think about counting that child who will be born by April 1st, which is Census Day. Our elders, that's another big, really big undercounted community. Again, you know, a lot of them, maybe they're, if they're living at home, they don't really trust that the government is asking for this information. A lot of times they live in nursing facilities, and for some reason they are not counted. And we all live in Kansas. Another big part of our undercount community is rural communities. And I think all of us are affected by that, right? What that is, we're going to talk a little bit more later, but that is one of our biggest push is to make sure that everyone in rural Kansas, which, what percentage of the state is rural Kansas, right?
By landmass or by people?
You give me whatever answer. I think either way, it's pretty sad. So what is the data from the census utilized for? Well, there's the biggest reason, or the top reason, is of course to make sure we know how many people live in the United States, right? I mean, that is what we know. But a lot of people believe that, you know, that's really not a reason important enough to fill out the census. However, you know, we do need to utilize this data to determine how many seats we have in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, someone was telling me the other day that at one point, Kansas had, I think in the 60s, maybe somewhere you can help me, that we had 7 representatives at one point. Now, with this census, I don't believe that Kansas is at risk of losing or gaining any other seats, right? But in the future, that might change. Again, we have a lot of the population that is not counted in the census, and the number of people in our state is what determines how many representatives we have. So we need to make sure that, you know, in future years we have more and better representation for our communities, right? That is also utilized to draw the congressional districts within our state. District 1, right? It is, to me, it's crazy how big of a district. And I say that because I'm also part of the state complete count committee for the governor's office, and I'm in charge of the 1st district. Let me just tell you, those in the 4th district, they probably are doing a lot of better job than I am in the 1st district. So, you know, that is a large area. We need to, you know, make sure that we have a little more representation there. And of course, the most important, and I think that reason that it's going to affect most of you that are here today, is the distribution of federal funding for our communities. So the U.S. government has about $635 billion in aid that are going to all of our communities. How do we decide how much that money goes to each of your communities? Is again by how many people live in your counties, okay? So just to give you an example, for Southwest Kansas, Dodge City, my hometown, in the 2010 census, we had about a 66% response rate to the census, which is pretty consistent with all of Southwest Kansas and Southeast Kansas as well. There's pockets in Wichita and other areas who also showed a very low participation rate, but Southeast and Southwest Kansas are the lowest. So Dodge City, according to the Census Bureau, we have 26,000 residents in Fort County. Let me just tell you, that is completely wrong.
Right.
That is completely wrong. So the school district estimates that we have, and obviously if any of you have worked with the schools, they probably have the better data. Why? Enrollment. It doesn't matter who you are, if you have kids, they're going to be at the school always is going to have the best data. They estimate that we have about 35,000 residents. Okay, so that's a big difference. And again, that's only counting those families who have kids in the district. We're not counting anybody else who's not counted for other reasons. So yeah, that is a big chunk of money, right? And we need to count everyone because those $635 billion are going to go to your communities for not just the obvious reasons, which a lot of people think when we're talking about federal funding, we're talking about things like Medicaid, we're talking about WIC, we're talking about food stamps, things that, maybe not everybody's excited, right? Not a lot of people are happy that we are getting those federal money. But what about other services that everyone utilizes in our counties, right? For those of you who have ever traveled to Southwest Kansas, Highway 50 is not the most pleasant drive, right? It's pretty dangerous. We always have a lot of accidents, and everyone wants a 4-lane road. Well, that's not going to happen because there's no money to devote that. The census actually has a lot to do with that money that goes to our road construction and maintenance in the whole state. That is one of the biggest reasons. Now, money for Pell Grants, for community colleges, for schools, also gets taken from that federal money that goes to our communities. School lunches for our kids, it is heavily funded through that. Our public libraries, that I think, again, everybody receives, is directly funded from that. Now, there's a lot of other programs in our communities that, maybe they're not directly funded from that money, but they receive grants from state or other federal associations that get money from that. We talk about Meals on Wheels, for example, communities in schools, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and CASA. A lot of those programs get funding from that money. So, if we have a community that is really 35,000 residents, but that community is only getting funded for 26,000 residents, what are we going to get that money from, right? Someone has to pay for it because the services are still going to be needed. They have to come up from somewhere. So sometimes, we're talking about school services, our taxes are going up because someone has to pay for it. If there's no money, we're going to be paying for that, right? Other than that, someone has to. A lot of the times, churches are the ones picking up the tab for a lot of those services. We have a lot of churches who help pay for medical bills for, not just for their congregation, but for anyone in the community that seeks their help. They get a lot of help with paying bills, with school supplies, with a lot of those essential services that should be taken care of by our state, right? Okay. Do we have any questions so far? Okay. So, for those of you who did fill out the census in 2010 and previous censuses, there was only one way, actually 2 ways, to fill out the census, right? One was to You will receive your questionnaire in the mail, you will fill it out, send it off. If you fail to do that, then you will have a few weeks later someone knocking at your door, asking you questions with a clipboard, and they will answer questions with you. So this year, or this next coming year, we're going to have a few more options added to that. We have the regular mail questionnaire. We're going to have a phone option and a online option. Now, it depends who you're talking to. That can be a really good thing, or that can be a really bad thing, right? If you're talking to my mother, that's really not going to make a difference. She's definitely not going to pick up the phone and give her information over the phone to someone, because what do we hear all the time? You don't give your information over the phone, right? And online? Well, my mom has an iPad that I gave to her a few years ago for Christmas. The only thing she uses is Candy Crush and Facebook. Yeah, we're talking about that isolation. Yeah, my mother is part of that community thing. But she's definitely not going to log in there and do a census online. Now, I will probably do that because I really don't want to talk to anyone on the phone. Again, I shall probably listen more to that presentation. So that will be something that I will do, because I really don't do any of my bills by mail. I do everything online. So for some people, that's going to be a really good idea. For some of them, no. Now we're talking again about some of our undercounted communities. Most of the, in Southwest Kansas and Wichita and parts of Kansas City, we have a lot of very diverse communities who English is not their primary language. So there's going to be different options. If you pick up the phone, you're going to have access to 12 different languages, who are the most commonly used in the United States. If you go online, there is going to be a lot more options. I think it's 150 different options to pick from. Now, how user-friendly that is to find your own language, however, those communities are very resilient. They will find it, because that's if it's important to them. We just need to make sure that that is something that is important to them. That's our job. And however, by mail, there's only English and Spanish, which, and let me just tell you, a lot of people think Southwest Kansas, if you don't speak English, you're going to speak Spanish. That is not correct. We have about 100 different languages in Southwest Kansas. Yes, Spanish is the primary language, but that is not the norm anymore. You have to have information available in so many languages. Wichita, Kansas City, and I'm sure for many of the other communities, it's the same thing. So we want to make sure that people are comfortable with finding the option that best works for them. And then yes, if you don't answer by mail, by phone, or online, someone will show up at your house and ask for your information. Which, again, if we're talking about some of the undercounted communities, our Black and brown communities, or our elders, our kids, obviously they're not going to be answering any door, hopefully. But that becomes an issue, again, because they are not trusting. We don't really, I count myself in that community. I really don't want anyone knocking on my door. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they're going to be asking me. I don't know if they work for the government. I don't know if, if they're the police that is showing up my door. So we want to make sure that everybody knows that the U.S. Census Bureau is going to have identification from them. Now that doesn't say much, because I don't, I can go and print something online and say that I work for the U.S. Bureau. So, but we want to make sure that our families understand that the U.S. Census Bureau is not going to be asking a lot of information that it doesn't pertain to them. Again, they're going to ask for things like their phone, not their phone number. There's going to be, although there's no name, there's going to be a phone question in there, just in case the questionnaire is incomplete. They can go back and get some more information. But that's the only identifying information. It's going to be the phone number. So we want to make sure that our families know that if anyone claiming to work with the U.S. Bureau is asking for things like Social Security number, bank accounts, anything like that, that should be an indication that it's not someone from the U.S. Bureau. And if they do, they need to either shut their door or call the police, or both. Okay, so the timeline. The census is going to start a little bit early this year. April 1st is the official census day. However, March 12th, the questionnaires are going to, or not the questionnaires, but there's going to be an invitation sent out to everyone. They're gonna be sent out some invitations with a QR code. Again, the QR code may benefit some people. My mom wouldn't even know that she might just think it's a cute decoration in the corner, right? So the QR code is going to give you access, a code for to enter online, and there's going to be another option for to answer by phone. With that code, you're welcome to fill it out before April 1st. Why that is because as many other organizations, the Census Bureau is cutting down on funding for enumerators. So they want as many people to fill it up online or by phone, maybe by mail, so they don't have to actually hire as many people to work. And again, that is also because we live in a really rural community. Everyone in Kansas is having a hard time getting enough people to work for the census, so that is another reason. So if you haven't used your little invitation code to enter online or by phone, then April 1st, a few days before April 1st, you're going to get your actual questionnaire. In that questionnaire, you're going to answer, you're going to mail it out. If you're like me, it's just going to sit in the counter because I tend to forget about those things. If you don't send your questionnaire back, then sometime in mid-April, you're going to get another reminder, which again, it's a lot of paper that the Census Bureau really doesn't want to send out because they're cutting down on costs. So you're going to get another invitation. You might get another one at the end of April, reminding you that you need to get this done. Okay. If you don't, then in May, you're going to start seeing enumerators go house by house. They don't want to do that. So we are actually helping them as well with recruiting part of that. Why is that? Because you are the trusted voices in your community, right? You more than likely, if you live in a smaller community especially, chances are that people kind of recognize you. They might not know who you are exactly, but they have seen your face. So if you decide that you're going to work for the U.S. Bureau and go and knock a few doors, you might get a better response than someone who is from another community. In most of the state, they have about 60% of the people that they need to go out there and work the census next year. So if you know anyone who is wanting to make a little extra money, maybe you have kids who are in college and are coming back, those jobs are really great for teachers who are off in the summer, and sometimes they want to get a part-time job. They actually pay pretty decent. I mean, depends on who you ask, but especially like for a college kid, they start $14 an hour, up to 17, I believe, and they can work as little as 4 hours or as many as 40 hours a week. So, that's a really good option for someone who just wants to make a little extra cash. Now, how you can help? Besides having someone that might want to work the census, how you can help? Well, that is very simple. You are, like I said, the trusted voices in your community. You are someone who has a lot of interaction with your clients, with those around you, at your church. We want you to talk to them about it. We want you to help appease some of those fears. I know that our political environment is pretty crazy right now, and that we don't always know who to trust. But this is probably one of the few areas in politics that I can say that the information that is given is going to be confidential, completely confidential. We were talking about some of our communities in Southeast Kansas, Southwest Kansas, that's where we need a lot of the funding. Not to say that and South Central actually falls under that too, but those are really areas that are lacking a lot of that funding, as are areas like in Wichita, Salina, Hutchinson. But if the response rate for the rest of the state, which was not great either, by the way, was about a 75–80%, which is still not good if you think about a place like Hutchinson, for example. That is not a good response rate either. But when we're talking about less than 65%, that's kind of worrisome. You know, we need to really go out there. What I need from you is to get involved in whatever ways. One of the ways that everyone in the state is working is by building complete camp committees. So if you know someone in your towns and your cities that are working on complete camp committees, reach out to them. You can join these committees to strategize, to help with the planning on, you know the communities better than maybe some of the people that are in government in your local level. So you can offer some ideas to them, okay? If you need help finding who is in your complete camp committee or who's organizing it, reach out to me. My information is in the back of your brochures, and we can get you in touch with someone. But you don't need to go with a state committee. You can just work within your friends, within the clients that you work with. You can talk to your churches. You can join some of those volunteer efforts that are happening within your towns, and really just be a voice and answer those questions that people might have. One of the organizations that has been working with us and forming those complete camp committees that are doing the work within the organizations, which is something you can do, to just do the work within your organization and plan for your customers, your clients, and decide what needs to be done for you. Monica here is one of our biggest partners, and they have done a couple of complete camp committees within our organization, so I'm going to let her talk about what they're doing to help.
Thank you, Blanca. Thank you very much for all your presentation. I hope that you were grasping a better idea of what the census is and what is important for our communities. I'm going to tell a little bit of my personal story first. I am an immigrant. I came about 7–8 years ago from Colombia, South America. I used to be an attorney back then, and then I became an attorney here in the U.S. I was living in the northeast coast for the most of my time in the U.S., working with many grassroots nonprofit organizations advocating for immigrant rights. And then through my work there, I started working with a national organization that is very committed on the census work. And I landed like 2 years ago without ever have taken the census in the U.S. in my life, and to be an advocate for the census. I was like, what is this about? And to be honest, I didn't know much that the comments that I'm so sorry. This is so through my work, I learned how important was the census, not just in terms of redistribution, but I learned more and more how 50 federal programs depend on the census, and the money that gets directly to the communities depends on that. And we did a lot of work in New York to get extra resources, because we start seeing how the census 2020 is going to be different from all other censuses that you have ever seen. Yeah, it's especially because this is part of a program that is being taken part on the past 10 years. That is, the census has to change. We have to reduce the funding for the census, and it's going to be online. What we have struggled to make understand to the Congress and the Census Bureau office is that this is a transitional census. You cannot just jump in one generation and get everyone to go online and include all your information online. The safety reasons, safety concerns, most of you may have them. Most of anybody that is over 40–45 years old is very concerned about giving out your information online. Like if I go online, I'm still comfortable filing things and ordering, giving my credit card information. But my mother certainly wouldn't do it, and older friends wouldn't do it. And then they are asking us to complete, and we don't even know what is in the census. Yeah, because then exactly what Blanca said, people may think that they may ask you social security numbers, exact information about who you are. And what I say to the communities that we work with, you already are giving a lot more information to Facebook. Yeah, so this is only 20 questions, but we need to reach out to and create census awareness and education. So that is what Local 2 of the UFCW is doing. So we are in the meat packing, food processing industry. So we have these big plants, especially in the southwest of Kansas. We represent companies when we have over 2,000 employees that we are representing at each of them. So in total, we are impacting over 18,000 members with their families and their communities. So part of one of the strategies of the census is, so here we are spread all over Kansas and Missouri, especially also a little bit of Oklahoma and Garden. But what is our strategy? So first, generate census awareness. Why it's important? That is exactly what Blanca is doing here and has done intensively through the state. Become and look for census ambassadors. That is exactly what we want you to be. To understand the challenges of this census are huge. Why? Because then the initial projections is that only 1% of the population will be counted in person by census takers. So it is 1%. The rest we expect everyone to complete by themselves. We want to promote self-response. The most census awareness we create from here to March the next year, the highest the possibility that we're going to have a self-response rate that is going to be enough to not allow these resources that are so important for the communities to go away. And talking about, and also education. Education is so important. You were mentioning earlier, why is the race question important, and why some communities think that they should all file white? That is part of a long conversation that actually I would have to sit with you and give you a 30 minutes exposition to explain all that has happened in the past 10 years to try to change that question, and which hasn't been possible. And after an extensive study by the way, and research that was done, that the Census Bureau came and said, okay, thank you, but we don't like it. And just they didn't dismiss it. And we kept it just how it was. Few things have changed, have been included, like nationality. Now you can, especially like for Hispanics, Latinos, so now you can include one nationality. But if you have friends from two nationalities, you have to pick up which one do you like better. so it's, and if you choose different races, automatically the census will pick one for you. Yeah.
And it's not going to be the one we want.
Right. It's not be the one. Why is important the race question? For apportionment purposes and to develop research studies about discrimination issues and disadvantage of communities, minority, colored communities especially. So that is why it's important the race question. So education and awareness. This is our strategy. So what we have done, we do newsletters. So we make sure that include in our newsletter an article about the census, including facts. Did you know that? Did you know that the census fund 50 programs at the state level? Did you know that each person that is not counted in the state is $2,000 that we taxpayers have to pay in the state of Kansas? Yeah, so it is, there are many facts. And I will be happy to share because we will be doing these newsletters from now on. Also, we have developed what is called Census Awareness Weeks. So we go to the plant and we sit in the cafeteria, we do the tables, we offer t-shirts, whatever they can call the attention of the members to tell them, to educate them about the importance of the census. You know, you can help with a flyer. So we work closely with the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau office, I know they are very short in resources, but they are doing the most that they can to give us all the information. But they only have, and I will be honest, it's not even in Spanish. Like I try to get the information they have in Spanish, it's minimal. So I've done it myself. We get it, like, okay, I do the translation if you want me to, but like whatever, it helps. Like now we have a lot of communities that speak so many more languages. So if you have in your congregations, in your centers, in the community centers, people who speak another language, we can engage them and ask them, could you help us with that translation? With just a flyer, something that explains a little bit better. These terms get, like, it seems very big and very confusing, but it is important that they understand that the lives of their children, the future of their children depend on the census. And that is one of the biggest points. One of the campaigns that we were working the most is children. Children under 5 years old consistently are the most undercount group of all ages in all communities. It's more than 5% of children in the U.S. is estimated that were counted in the census 2010. And we expect, and among Latinos, is more than 7%. So I can tell you that that number, if we don't take action right now to increase awareness and self-response, it will definitely increase. Why? Hard to count communities, that is a term that we use in census terms. Hard to count communities are rural communities, are children whose parents who are in foster care. Those children tend not to be counted. Children who live with their grandparents or an uncle or another relative. Children of single mothers, because they are the most busy ones. They really don't have time they don't want to even look at the mailbox. The mailbox is only bad news. So you are not going to take the time to go online. So talk to health centers and healthcare providers are vital. And community-based and faith organizations are vital. Because you are the trusted members of the community who can deliver the message to say this is safe, this is for your future, and this is for the future of your children. So that's part of the work that we are doing as the union. You can get my information. I will be happy to share the materials that we are creating for our members. I'm more than happy. I can share them with you in Spanish, and maybe you can help me with other languages as well. And then, okay, I wanted to, something additional. As I was mentioning, online is the challenge. One of the biggest challenges is that the census will be online. Yeah, and then the call centers, well, that's great. But that doesn't work for everyone, and most people don't want to use the call centers either. So we need to make sure that we get the paper-based forms available by April 8th in our communities. So when you are out there, you can ask to the people in your community, have you received the paper-based form? Have you already? First, encourage them to do it online. It definitely, there is a lot of resistance to it. Make sure that they get the paper-based form by April 8th. That is about the time, the first week of April. After April 8th, April 15th is when all the paper-based forms should go out. But the census is not projecting to send it to more than 20% of the households. And they have identified which are the hard-to-count communities where they are going to send them out. But who knows? I mean, I know they are trying their best, but it's on us to make sure that those forms are getting to those hard-to-count communities. Rural areas are especially difficult. They are not going to deploy census takers to rural areas. It's very difficult. It's very expensive, and they don't have the resources. Out of 500 census centers that they had in the past 2010 census, they cut it in half. They had 500, they have 250 nationwide.
Kansas has 2, which in past years, I think we had a few in every quadrant. Now, there's 2, one in Wichita and one in Overland Park.
Are these available to be answered on a phone? Many of the low-income people don't own other things.
Yes, over the phone, yes. And that,
No, I mean, like, can they do it on their phone?
Online.
Almost like a
yes,
smartphone?
it is smartphone friendly for sure, yes. Now, along with that though, you know, we talked about what you can do. One of the things that is happening, we are partnering with a lot of organizations. So Census Week, which will be the first week in April, different churches are joining efforts and joining the Census Week by doing Wednesday nights. They're going to have volunteers and hopefully let us utilize some of the technology that they have so that the congregation can fill out the census form after church on Wednesday service, okay? The public libraries is going to pick a date. They don't know what yet they're going to do, but the libraries are going to pick one day during Census Week so that the people who maybe are homeless, and you know, that's another undercount community.
Yeah.
It's the homeless community. You know, they're going to be a part of that.
Sorry, there is a census strategy for homeless, and I know it's very important in the community that we work. And they deploy census takers just one day to count homeless people. It's gonna be like April 2nd?
Yeah, I think it's April 2nd. And that's a strategy that they have, and I think it's gonna take, you know, it's gonna count a good portion of the homeless community. But again, when we're talking about fear, that's you know, that's a big community that really they don't want to be identified, right? Or you might be in this area today, you might be in this area tomorrow, so the chances that you're going to be counted may or may not happen. So that's what, you know, one of the, although April is actually pretty nice, but you know, when the weather's not nice or they just need a place to stay, where's one of the first places that a homeless community go? If it's not a shelter, because in a lot of communities they don't open for certain hours.
Yeah.
Churches and libraries, right? So that's one of the strategies that is going to happen. We are going to identify other providers, like health providers are going to be another one. We want a lot of our local clinics and hospitals to help us count a lot of those communities, again, because hospitals get a lot of this funding as well, right? So it benefits everyone. Yes, I think you have a question.
Well, yes, you mentioned the committees, these census committees. Who creates them and how do you create them?
It really depends on the community. So historically, it's the city government who organizes it. However, some communities are not wanting to participate in that, so we have to go around them. In Southwest Kansas, the union has taken that lead in forming some of those communities. But you can do a community through your church. You can do a community, like in Dodge City, we have the school district has a lot of the employees, especially in the lower grades, that are coming together to work on that. That is something that you can do as well. You do need to be trained by a U.S. Census Bureau representative, but if that's something that interests you, we will, if both of us have a very good relationship with them, they will go and train you. They just want to make sure that everyone is counted.
So how do we get that information? If you, how do we get that information from you to contact someone who can train the committee?
So my information, and I can give you my card as well, but my information is on the back of that brochure. So if you want to contact us, let us know, and we will reach out to you. Monica is willing to pass that information as well. But you can organize. You don't have to be associated with the city or county government. You can go on your own to do this. Especially in rural communities, let me just tell you, and I know we talked about a little bit, and I told you I was going to go back, and I didn't. But does anybody here live in a community, we have a few minutes, that does not get serviced by the postal service, that PO boxes? No one? Well, you are lucky.
There's a very small community just in Brookville,
Okay.
Kansas, just like
Well,
20
that
minutes
is a
down the
very
road, where they're-
undercount community, because like I said, everything that the invitations that you're gonna get from the U.S. Census Bureau are going to be delivered by mail, right? Well, for some reason, the U.S. Postal Service is not going to deliver the invitations on the PO boxes.
Yeah.
Why? Don't ask me that.
Those are not household.
Yes, so we live in rural Kansas. All of Kansas, besides a few places, are rural. the numerators, and they're gonna tape it to your door. I don't know when you guys leave, but I know in my community the wind is not going to leave those little sticky things. So the questionnaire itself will be taken as well. So again, we have to strategize and make sure that those small communities in most of Kansas get access to this questionnaire.
So say that, so say, you know, they take the thing to my door, it's gone.
Yeah.
Can I just fill out, are
No,
there generic
because-
forms? I mean, how do you do
Okay,
that?
yeah,
Well, that's what it's sort of
you are
true when
assigned
go
a
to the
specific
church.
number, so that code. You have to use the code. And no one more in the household, you cannot use the code twice. If there is someone in that household, and the problem is, what is a household? Because I can have people living in a friend who is, you know, being laid off and is being 6 months living in the basement. You don't count it as a household, but he won't have a number. So that person will need to go online and get like a kind of.
They're gonna have to wait until the numerators go to your house.
But
Which again, if you work, there's not they need the number for the residents.
So,
Now that you can call and request one, and you can get it that way, but I mean, that's going around.
so how do like the homeless population, and if you're gonna do this at a church, where do those numbers?
So our homeless population or college kids, those are two, and I believe the nursing homes as well, they have a special form just for them. Now, and it's a lot shorter. They don't ask as many questions. It's just really how old are them, you know, they.
So then technically your friend that lives in your basement is homeless?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes and no.
But you can also count
Yes
it.
and no.
Yeah, but you can count it. The idea is that you include it. Because they ask you
So I would
the
include it in
questionnaire.
my house.
If
Yeah.
they're in your house,
Yes,
the day
that
that
is
you're filling
the
it out.
ideal. The ideal if there are 20 people, you count everyone. There is no problem. You just reflect whoever. Because one of the questions is what is your relation with the household, with the main household member. So that is one of the questions. Yeah, so you can say like I'm just a friend, I'm temporary being here, that's it. But because that allows the government at the state and federal level to do better projections about what are the resources needed in the community. But the idea is to include everyone, and that is a problem of the paper base, that it comes like until like number 6 of people, and then there are no more. So you may have to add an extra one. While online, you can add as many people as you want online. And that's why children are not counted. That's why we are suffering, because children are not counted.
Yeah, it's really something, you know, and if they get out counted, or double counted, you know, like parents for the boards, the child spends 1 week here, 1 week there, you have to have those conversations. But that's not something you're gonna, you know, not everybody has that relationship. We're gonna, hey, ex-husband, what do you think? What do you want to have? Yes, ma'am.
It's supposed to be wherever the person is on that day.
On that day.
April 1st.
April 1st.
On April 1st. That is like at the picture moment of the country.
If you remember.
April 1st.
You can count.
So
I mean,
what
most
about
people understand
like
it, just like
expecting
the
moms? You
schools,
briefly
we
mentioned
have-
that. Does their baby have to be?
September 21st.
Like, my sister-in-law's due April
Say again?
6th.
So in all public schools, there's.
You know,
So it's
that baby's gonna need services for the next 10 years.
That's what I was.
So
Can
it's
she
like,
count that baby?
Yeah.
So everybody has to be at school, you can't, everybody does it at school that day.
April
it depends on the family. It's the family's
Cause like if
decision.
she fills it out on.
Just like the baby who might be at the ex-husband's house,
Yeah.
it's her decision.
Okay.
So low-income families that move around a lot, I mean, they're always house to house and they
Yep.
may not, how do they get a number?
The house that they're living in that time, you know, usually, a lot of our families pick up their stuff and they leave, some of them don't, some of them leave everything behind. Hence the undercount. Those are the most vulnerable populations for a reason.
So for them to get a count,
For them to get a count, you know, they will have to get on the phone and request a new number if they lost it. Or if the house that they lived in, they will keep getting invitations and list out non-respondents. So that's where we need to really work with our families. That's why you are the most helpful people to help us get a complete count, is because when they don't know what to do, you might be able to answer those questions for them. If you don't know the answer, reach out to someone that does.
That was a presentation by Blanca, Soto, and Monica Vargas-Huertas on the 2020 census. You're watching Salina Media Connection.